Today we're going to master the key of B minor. Now what's interesting about this key is, one, it works really well for many subgenres, or pretty much any subgenre of rock and metal music. So that makes it really diverse in the different things that you can come up with in this key. The other great thing about it is that a lot of times as metal guitar players, we tend to go for those open strings. We tend to always go for that, which is cool. That's our heavier tones there, but this kind of breaks you out of that pattern a little bit. So we're going to start out with the scale, the B minor scale. So we're starting out, I'm in standard tuning by the way, we're starting out on the 2nd fret of the A string. We're gonna skip a fret, okay, we're gonna go to the 4th fret there. That's gonna be a C sharp, followed by a D. Then we're gonna go over to the next string and pretty much do the exact same thing. It's gonna be frets 2, 4, and 5 there, okay? So again, we've got B on the A string here, 2nd fret, B, C sharp, D. We're going to head over to the next string, do the same thing. That's going to give us an E, F sharp, G, okay? 2 more notes to go. We're going to head over to the G string, and we are going to play an A followed by a B. Now remember, when we're playing these scales, okay, really any major or minor scales and a lot of scales, you're going to land on the same note, just an octave higher. So we start with a B, and then we end with a B. Now another place on the fretboard you can start this with that same lower note there is we can actually start that on the E string 7th fret. So instead of this, we can play it here. The reason I like to show you that is because listen to just the subtle differences between these same scales, same notes, okay? Same octaves here, like this note here that we started with on the 2nd string, 2nd fret. Same note if we start on the E string 7th fret. But you already hear the subtle difference. So listen to these real quick. Again, not a huge difference, but there's a slight difference in what I like to call character. And you might play the notes in one spot. That would be dependent on what kind of feel you're going for that riff, because these heavier notes, or heavier strings rather, even the subtle difference, what gives you just a slightly different feel, if that makes sense. And that's the beauty of knowing the notes within these keys, just knowing where to go, where you can play notes that are going to fit perfectly within that key. Now, I want to make a very important note here. This does not mean that you have to play these notes within the key of B minor, okay? I always encourage you to color outside the lines, right? When you're playing guitar, there's no right or wrong. This is where sometimes people get a little mixed up with theories, like, I've got to play those notes so that I'm in that key. The only thing that matters is that, do you like how that sounds, okay? So again, feel free to color outside the lines. The purpose of this, of us going through these lessons here, mastering the keys, is so that you don't have to do any guesswork to know where to play within that key. That gives you freedom, okay? So on that note, no pun intended, we could take the notes within this scale and change them around a little bit to come up with some cool riffs. So let's go back here, starting on the A string 2nd fret. So instead of playing this, let's just change some of those notes around. Let's change the order of some of those notes. All we did there is we just switched around the order. Now, I just made that up on the fly. You guys know that's most of what I do here on YouTube when I'm going through these lessons, so I didn't put the tabs up. But I just encourage you, I'm not really concerned that you learn what I just played there, but just change the order of the notes. Because the best riff is the one that you come up with, and that's really the whole purpose of these types of videos. I want you to know where the notes are within particular keys, so that again, there's no guesswork. You know where you can go, and it's going to fit perfectly within that key without even thinking about it. So just play around with that. Just a short interlude here. First of all, I want to thank all of you who have joined my new Guitar Academy over at JasonStallworthGuitarAcademy.com. Thank you so much for all the awesome feedback. I'm glad that platform is helping you. Real quick, so if you want access to the tabs and the backing tracks that I give you for all of my monthly lessons, in fact, I've got all of 2024 and beyond out there for you now, as well as my online guitar courses, Metal Guitar Apprentice, which is designed to take you from a beginner quickly to the intermediate level. That has helped thousands of guitar players, and also my course, Metal Riff Master. I'm working on a lead course that's coming real soon, but you'll get access to those courses and all of my future courses without any additional charges or anything. So check that out. There's a link in the description of this video. Let's talk about the power chords. Since we're talking about rock and metal here, let's dive right into the power chords. So of course, we're going to start with a B minor power chord to be within the key of B minor, okay? That first note that we're playing is called your root note. The second note that makes up that power chord is called your 5th note. So your root and your 5th. Now, look where my fingers are here. Playing the B power chord, and you can look at the tabs too. We're playing a B, okay, naturally. We're going to start with that B note, A string 2nd fret. The next note that we play, that we pair with that, is an F sharp. Now, the next chord we're going to play that's within this key, the next power chord rather, we're going to go up to a D. Now you might be saying, well, wait a minute, Jason, there's a C sharp in there. And I'll show you why that, well, I'm not going to say it doesn't work, because it does work, but I'm going to show you why we wouldn't play that power chord if you're playing the power chords within the key of B minor. I'm going to show you why the typical power chord, root and 5th note of the C sharp, doesn't really work. However, it does. I know I just contradicted myself. We'll talk about that in a second, but let's just go through the power chords within this key. Okay, B minor here. Start with a B minor, then we're going to go to a D. Then we're going to go to an E, F sharp, G, A, back to B. Now, let's play through that real quick. So we could play the C sharp power chord. let me just let you hear how that sounds. I'm just going to play, that, the C sharp followed by the D. Let's play that real quick. The reason why that's technically not within the key of B minor as a power chord is because the C sharp power chord, you start with C sharp. Well, what makes the power chord? The fifth note of that, okay? Which in this case is actually a G sharp, all right? So well, that note, that fifth note of the C sharp power chord, well, that's not within the key of B minor. However, remember, there are no rules. I know I say that like a broken record. You play what sounds great to you. Again, the purpose of this is so that we know the notes within that key. We know where we can pretty much safely go and it's going to work. But again, color outside the lines, experiment. So this doesn't sound bad at all. What I like to do in this case, though, I'm going to show you what I consider a better and much cooler sounding way to play that. And this actually does fit within the key of B minor. Pretty cool. So all I did here in this case was, instead of playing the C sharp power chord, your root and your fifth, all I did was I played a C sharp over A. And I just moved my finger up on the D string from that 6th fret to the 7th fret. So right there, instead of this, we play this. So again, I'm not so concerned whether that fits within the key of B minor or any key. I personally don't care. I just like the way that sounds. I love this. Sounds cool. Now we're going to flip over to the E string. We're going to follow through with the chord progression here, okay? Remember, the next chords, power chords that we have are E, F sharp, G, and A. So let's just play through that, okay? Let's play through this pattern here. So we're going to apply that strategy to the F sharp. So that means I'm going to play the F sharp power chord. Okay, we've got 2 and 4 there, E and A strings, 2 and 4, right? Frets 2 and 4. Let's apply that strategy and move that pinky finger to the 5th fret. And as you can see, F sharp, okay, obviously that's part of the key of B minor. Well, by moving that finger to the 5th fret of the A string there, well, what note is that? Well, that's a D. We know that's within the key as well. Now again, the F sharp power chord is within the key, okay? That's within the key of B minor, those notes. F sharp, and then we've got a C sharp. Those are still in the key. But again, we can stretch that using that same strategy we use with the C sharp, still within the key of B minor. Again, I don't want you to get so hung up on, is it in the key or is it not? Because then you start questioning yourself, well, can I play it or I'm not supposed to play it? That does not exist. Throw that garbage out the window. Play what sounds cool. If it sounds cool to you, play it. If it doesn't sound cool, if it just sounds not right, well, you don't have to play it. Play something else, right? Again, this is all about knowing where you can go safely. And it's like, okay, I know where the notes are within this key, and I can just kind of go from there, okay? It just makes things easier. So let's apply that strategy. I'm going to play that progression, and we're going to play those two killer types of power chords with us, okay? Pretty cool. Now, I did something just now. I don't know if you noticed that. With this, we're about to dive into some variations. This is where things get interesting. Listen to the two different ways I'm going to play the B power chord here, okay? That sounded heavier. It actually probably sounded like, whoa, Jason, what are you tuned to now? What we're doing here is we're taking the fifth note of the power chord, okay? So remember our power chord, our B power chord here. We've got our A string, 2nd fret, D string, 4th fret. That note, okay, again, that's an F sharp there. We're actually gonna play, we're gonna start the chord with this note, the C sharp note, but the lower octave of that, which is on the E string, 2nd fret. So what this allows us to do is bar those first two notes across the 2nd fret there, across the E and the A strings. And of course, we've got our D string, 4th fret. And this gives you this sound. Pretty mean. Yeah, pretty heavy, right? So this is a cool way to just kind of sound a little bit heavier, just give it some more depth in certain parts of the riffs, right? And of course, you can do that with any power chord that you're playing on the A and the D strings there, okay? So remember, we've got the B, we've got our B power chord there, we've got our D. You can play your E down here if you want. You can keep going up if you want to do that. Now that's great for some of the heavier stuff. Let's say, for example, someone was tuned down to B standard, right? On their guitar, they tuned everything down to B standard, or they're playing in drop B. Well, you could still play along with them in standard tuning by using that strategy. Or if they had a 7-string guitar in standard tuning, right, which would be in B standard tuning, you could use that strategy to keep up, right, to still play the same notes in the same areas for the most part, just by using that. So it's pretty cool. Now, let's talk about some other variations of power chords. Let's go back to the B minor here. I'm going to throw in a few other notes just within that one power chord. So check this out. All I did here, and you've probably heard this a gazillion times on my channel because I love this strategy, I love this concept. All we're doing is we're changing that second note of the power chord, which again, that's called the 5th note. Okay, remember, you've got your root note, that's where you start, and then your next note of the power chord we call the 5th note. Okay, I'm just changing that note to whatever. Well, not exactly whatever. What I'm doing, if you notice, all the variations that I played of that power chord, which are this right here, sounded a little evil, didn't it now? So if you notice though, that second note, okay, that next note of the power chord, all those notes that I played we're within the scale of B minor, okay? And that's the point of using the variation of power chords, is changing that next note of the power chord around, but using, like changing it to one of the other notes within that key. So if we did that with the B power chord, let's go up to the D power chord. Let's try some variations of those. And again, we're keeping in mind that we're going to change that next note of the power chord. We're always keeping the root note the same here. Now, you don't have to do that. Again, no rules. But in this case, we're keeping the root note the same, but we're just changing the next note of the power chord, okay? The fifth note, we're going to play the third note or whatever, right? Whatever we come up with, but we're staying within the key of B minor, so everything really just seamlessly fits, okay? So here's the D. Now you might have also noticed that I changed the power chord up a little bit the first time I played that. I kind of chopped it up by not playing the power chord and just playing the individual notes like this. All I'm doing is I'm just kind of like playing that next note. I'm starting with that, and then the root note, I'll go over and palm mute that twice in between. And you don't have to play it that way. Again, I'm just using that as an example of the many things that you can start doing to make like a regular power chord progression just like come alive and sound like something else. You're like, whoa, hey, where did this come from? By just changing that second note, okay, that next note of the power chord, just making it something different, right? And we can do the same thing with all of those power chords within that progression there. Now, I want to bring up something really interesting here. So I want to play something that's not within the key of B minor. I'm just going to make something up, but I'm going to go to a chord that, well, doesn't really fit that key, but remember, because there are no rules, it's still going to sound really cool. And it's a strategy used a lot in some of the hard rock, especially the darker rock and metal songs. Okay, so check this out. Where did that come from? We put a C power chord in there. Wait, that doesn't fit in the key of B minor. Well, this is one of those cool strategies that we use in rock and metal, especially in some of the more obscure sounding stuff, right? We throw in chords and notes that don't particularly fit within that key if you're just sticking to the key of B minor. Now, there are theory terms for this type of concept, right? There are different types of theory terminology you can use when you go to something like this. I won't get deep into that, but I just say that, and I played that to share with you that, again, there are no rules. Play around with stuff. Color outside the lines. Okay, if you think there are rules, then break them, okay? That's the cool thing we do in metal music. For example, like if we're playing in the key of E minor, okay? Okay, I played an F in there, which doesn't fit in the key, and I covered that in mastering E minor. We've got videos on E minor, A minor, and I'll throw those links in the description of this video. Now, we're not done yet. I want to share some lead patterns with you, some things you can do with your guitar solos. That's coming up. But before we do that, let's change guitars just for a few seconds here. Now we're talking full chords within the key of B minor here, right? So we've got our B minor, we've got our D, okay, we've got our E minor, okay, we've got our S sharp minor, our G, and our A. But I wanted to share this real quick with you. If you play acoustic, or you can do this on electric too, it doesn't matter. But I want to share how I sometimes play the C sharp. Remember the C sharp over A that we played. A lot of times when I'm playing acoustic, and of course a lot of you guys know I play acoustic shows, probably 2 or 3 shows a week around the Tampa Bay area here. I play 80s covers. It's funny, I'm doing metal in the studio here, and that's kind of my living, right? But I'm out there a few times a week playing 80s music on acoustic and some originals. But in any case, though, I like to play around with as many open strings as possible, and the key of B minor allows me to do that. So going to that C sharp over A, so I've got my B minor here. What I'm doing is I'm playing the B minor instead of this. Sometimes, like half the time, just depending on what kind of feel I want for that song, right? I'll leave the E string open. Okay. Now going up to the C sharp over A, so I just think that's a beautiful, beautiful chord. And I apologize, I don't know the name of that chord. I'm sure there's a theory term for it, right? But you can see I've got the C sharp. We're starting out with a C sharp, A string, 4th fret. Next string over, we are on the 7th fret, right? Remember that's our A, our C sharp over A. Then the following strings, I'm on the 4th fret, I'm sorry, the 6th fret of the G string, okay? So it's 4, 7, 6, then open, open. It's a beautiful, beautiful sound. I love that open chord sound. And if I go to a D, a lot of times I play my D chord with that E string open. I just like that sound better than that. But another way you can play the D, if you want to keep those open strings, is I just played my D chord with the B and E strings open. So we're basically like playing a bar chord here, an extended bar chord, right? We're on the A and D string, frets 5 and 7, okay? And the G string, the 7th fret as well, leaving the B and E open. So I just want to share that real quick with you. Play around with different notes. Give yourself the freedom to play around with just different notes. Like I can also do like this. Right? So what I did there was I played the full B minor chord, but I went to the C sharp, but I left everything else barred with my first finger there. So we go. It gives you that little walk up. That little bass line walk up. So just some little things to think about. All right, let's switch back to the other guitar. Going for the whammy bar, and there's no whammy. So I wanted to revisit the B minor scale real quick, and of course how you can use that for playing guitar solos. Now the last thing I want is for my guitar solo to sound like I'm practicing or playing a scale. I don't want the guitar solo to sound like I'm practicing anything. And a lot of times, and we're all guilty of that, myself included, sometimes if I'm just jamming, I'm like, okay, well I'm playing this cool lick or pattern that I'm trying to get down or whatever, but it just sounds like I'm practicing. Well, I don't want that for an actual guitar solo that's going to be part of a song, okay? And there's a big difference between practicing a technique and, writing your own guitar solo, which I encourage you guys to do. Please do that. And that's why we're going through this lesson. So not only can you make up your own riffs and progressions based on what we've been doing up to this point. But you can now also make up your own guitar solos. Because why? Well, because you know where the notes are within this key of B minor. So you know where to go. You know which notes to play that's going to perfectly fit. And again, you can color outside the lines and do your own thing from there, right? But at least you have the general idea of what you can play that you already know that's going to sound good and it's going to fit naturally. So I think it's important to know that B minor scale, but just continue on that. And one way to do that, so let's start the scale that we learned on the E string, the B minor version we learned on the E string, right? The scale continues after that, because remember, we end on the same note that we started with, just an octave higher. So you can just continue, and you're in the key of B minor. Okay, and you can just continue on from there. Or maybe you want to start with one of the lower strings, like the D or G string, you know, in this region of the fretboard. So we know B, okay? We know that's the case. Now we also know that everything starts over the 12th fret. So, you know, if we started our B minor scale on the 2nd fret of the A string, everything starts over at 12, so that would be the 14th fret. Okay, and then we know from here, now you know all these notes in this area, and you can start creating your own guitar solos. Now again, color outside the lines, you know, and don't just play the scale, right? Just, you know where the notes are, so. Just experiment, and you don't have to hang in this region of the fretboard, right? You can go up here, because remember, you know this scale here. And that one, so you can start figuring out where those notes are in this area here, like the G, B, and E strings here, right? Now, one more thing, I'd like to share where you can get my monthly lessons at, the tabs and the backing tracks, as well as access to not only all my courses I have there now, but all my future courses and upgrades. So I've got a new guitar academy. It's called Jason Stallworth Guitar Academy. I want to invite you to check that out. There's a link in the description of this video. Again, you get all of my lessons, my monthly lessons. I've got all 2024 and beyond out there. You get access to my courses, Metal Guitar Apprentice, my beginner's metal guitar course, Metal Riff Master. I'm working on a lead course now, and you'll get access to all courses, all future courses, and any upgrades I make to the platform. I know a lot of you are in there now, so thank you so much for the amazing feedback. I appreciate you. So check that out, link in the description here. Guys, I hope this lesson helped. Please let me know if you like these types of lessons. I know they're kind of long, but we do really a deep dive into these keys. We've got E minor and A minor out there as of now. I'll put those videos in the description here so you can check those out as well. Leave me any comments or questions. Hey, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And as always, guys, keep it metal and keep playing music.